Hey, what's up there? This is Cody the Coin Raptor bringing you another Bitcoin video. And there's some pretty amazing things going on in the Bitcoin space right now. I want to talk about the incredible amount of money that we've seen so far to Bitcoin ETFs over the last week. I also want to go ahead and talk about what traders are betting the Bitcoin price is going to be by the end of April. And I want to go ahead and go over some interesting whale activity that I've noticed so far when it comes to Bitcoin. But before we get to that, be sure to subscribe, be sure to hit that like button, and be sure to follow me on X. Bitcoin has been actually very nice over the past week. We've seen it move from a low of about 64,000 all the way up to where it is right now, just currently at about 69,800. I've said multiple times that this 70K region here is the region that Bitcoin needs to push above in order for it to show us that there's some strength in the market. And it absolutely needs to make sure it keeps holding this 64K region. So if you guys are looking at the Bitcoin chart TA, just know that that 70K area, that I think is the most important region right here. I've kind of marked this out in a red line. And Bitcoin, if it can push above the 70K region, then I can easily see a case for us to head past 74K. And the daily RSI right now is only sitting at 55, so there's plenty of room left to run in the current Bitcoin price. Now, I also want to go ahead and talk about the liquidation heat maps for Bitcoin. So we're going to go ahead and go out to about a week or so. And you can see that there is a large amount of, if you go ahead and take a look at this, there's a very large amount of the Bitcoin short liquidity sitting here at about 70,900. So if Bitcoin can kind of come up a little bit and go to 70,900, maybe 71,000, I have no doubt that it will continue to go higher, and we'll probably get a nice spike up to 74K as as these shorts get liquidated as the price moves up much higher. So there's a huge level of liquidity basically right here, and there's also a large amount of long liquidity on the other side here at 68,800. So if Bitcoin does go below that 68,800 support threshold, we're going to see it probably go back down to 66, maybe 64K in that region. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the Bitcoin returns that we can expect for April. Okay, so we have the CoinGlass Bitcoin monthly returns chart here, and we've had a really strong start to the year. February plus 43%, March plus 16%. Now, typically when it comes to April, we see it's actually up on the median, about 5% or so, 5%, 14% on average. So April normally is actually a pretty strong month for Bitcoin. It's May and June that are kind of a little bit suspect, because we do see that May and June are very back and forth. We've had some pretty big dumps on May and June in the past. But when it comes to April, April is normally a very strong month for Bitcoin. So that's the reason why I think we could actually see some more gains before the end of the month. And this goes to basically where I'm going to talk about the traders are going to be imagining the Bitcoin price to be heading at the end of the month. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the Bitcoin spot ETFs. Now, we usually go to the Apollo site and take a look at the spot ETF inflows, and it does actually a pretty good job of telling us what the daily inflows. But there is another site that I've been looking at that I think has been really nice on this, and this is this value.xyz, and they do a tracker, basically like a daily tracker of the net inflows for these spot ETFs. And we can see that for the about the 5th or so of April, we actually had a large inflow from BlackRock here at about $300 million or so of inflow into that ETF. And that's actually pretty enormous. We saw also a pretty big outflow of about $200 million from Grayscale. So this is the large amount of money that's coming into these funds that are then being used to drive demand for the Bitcoin price. And it's partially a reason why we can go ahead and take a look at the massive increase in the Bitcoin price that we've seen over the past week. all this is being largely driven by those spot ETFs and that demand from those spot ETFs. Okay, so this is also something. Something I'm going to be looking for, and just looking at the specific 1-day net inflows for these spot ETFs. Now you can also see here that there is a cumulative total net inflow since the creation of these ETFs, and that's totaling $12.61 billion. Again, that's net inflows. That is pure Bitcoin demand since the adoption of these ETFs. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is whales and what whales have been up to. So, on the one hand, I have kind of two sort of case studies here. So, on the one hand, we have the one of the largest Bitcoin wallets here. Let me refresh this page real quick. One of the largest Bitcoin wallets here, and this is actually one that's linked to Robinhood. Again, this is Bitcoin whale number 3, and we've seen a little bit of inflows to those Bitcoin wallets. Those addresses here. So I think that we're starting to see some demand specifically from Robinhood and Robinhood's customers buying the Bitcoin. They've added 700 Bitcoin to their wallet here. And this is consistent with what we've seen in the past. They've done this multiple times back in March, where they added 700, 1,400, and 700 again to this wallet here. So there's one side of things in which the retail community is incredibly strong and still the demand for Bitcoin is there. And on the other side of things, we have another Bitcoin whale. This is a wallet that's been dormant for about 10 years or so. They initially added their Bitcoin all the way back in about 2013. Now, this is a wallet that's held a significant amount of Bitcoin up to a value here of about around $121 million worth of Bitcoin. And we've seen with this wallet that they've recently they've moved Bitcoin, about 246 Bitcoin, from this wallet to an external wallet. This wallet right here that I've clicked on. Now this wallet right here, I don't think that they're selling it. I think that they're probably dividing and spreading their money around a little bit. I don't think that this is a sell so far, but it is interesting to see some old wallet activity on the blockchain during this bull market. And what it means right now is potentially that whale could be setting up to sell, or they could just be dividing their money. So I think that this is nothing to be worried about, nothing to be panicked over, but this is just interesting activity that I think that I should mention. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is what's going on with Bitcoin long-term holders in general. And of course, we take a look at the long-term versus the short-term supply for Bitcoin to determine what share of the supply do long-term holders currently own. And over the last month, it's been decreasing, and it's been decreasing a lot. It went from a peak here of about 85% down to where it is right now at about 78%. We've seen a significant decline in the amount of long-term holders versus short-term holders. Long-term holders have been selling. They've been taking profits so far in this bull market, and they've been using that money for other things. But I think that it's really important to kind of pay attention to this, because the behavior of long-term holders kind of gives us an idea of how long in the tooth the Bitcoin bull market is. And again, I don't think this is cause for concern just yet, but just know that in every other time we've had a bull market, they've always taken and sold a significant percentage of their share of Bitcoin that they've held for the long term. And they've basically taken profits and waited for another opportunity to get back into the market. So we're starting to see a little bit of selling from these long-term holders, and I expect that this is going to accelerate as the Bitcoin price moves higher and higher. Now, as for the Bitcoin traders, we go to Deribit, we take a look at our Bitcoin options, and we take a look at the largest day of expiry. And again, this is the 26th of April. These are numbers that keep changing, so I always want to update you guys on this information. But just know right now we're looking at $3.5 billion of call options that expire on the 26th of April, and $2.2 billion worth of put options that are expiring on that day. And currently, traders, if you take a look at those call options, there's a huge amount of that call option money, about $300 million, that have a strike price of $80,000. So what they're saying here is that they're expecting the Bitcoin price to be $80,000 or close to that by the end of April, about the 26th or so of April. And in order to get there, you'd basically have to have a rally after the halving. And again, the halving's in about 12 days. So you'd have to have a rally after the halving in which Bitcoin goes all the way up to 80K. Now, the other largest area that they're looking at is 70K. So between the 70,000 and this $80,000 region, this is where a majority of these call option strike prices are. So the most bullish of traders right now are betting on $80,000 Bitcoin by the end of April. And again, I can expect that, I can actually see that happening because the fact that it's the RSI is incredibly low for a bull market, anyways, and because of the fact that Bitcoin traditionally does fairly well in April. So that's something to watch out for. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is what's the events going on for next week. Monday, we have Fed president speaking. Tuesday, there's not much going on. Wednesday, core CPI and core CPI here, and then core PPI on Thursday. Okay, so just be aware of those two big events with the Fed governor speaking. Those are going to affect the traditional markets, and they're going to affect Bitcoin. So just make sure you guys are aware of that. Friday, not much going on, just more Fed presidents speaking. So let me know what you guys think about this. If you're interested in some of the new information that I've brought you, and if you think that it's possible that we'll actually get to that 80K Bitcoin by the end of April, leave a comment below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.